Okay, if you've been told that the low FODMAP diet is your only hope for IBS and gut-related issues, I'm here to tell you that that is a lie. It's not the truth, and actually I think it could be harming your health in the long run. And I want to show you in this video why I don't think it's the right solution. The big problem here is that it's not addressing the root issue. So in this video, I'm going to share why the low FODMAP made my personal symptoms worse and what you should do instead to actually heal the root issue. And I'm going to kind of break down what that root issue is. So this video is particularly for those who are histamine intolerant. It is a very common thing to be histamine intolerant. And at the end of this video, I'm going to share a unique opportunity that I'm really excited about for those of you who are trying to heal your gut naturally and not resort to any of these like long-term diets that don't actually work, supplements and doctors and whatnot that aren't actually fixing your problems. So let's start with what is the low FODMAP diet. I'm going to post a picture here on the screen of the foods that they avoid and the foods that they prefer. And you can kind of see a breakdown of this whole list. As you can see, on the foods to avoid, they're avoiding excess fructose, lactose, fructans, galactans, and polyols. And then on the to enjoy list, there's fruit, vegetables, miscellaneous, starch, dairy. Basically, what I've gathered from this diet is that they are avoiding the fructose, the lactose. But the problem with this is that I don't think they realize the reason why you're avoiding these foods, because if they did, there are certain things on the foods to enjoy list that I think wouldn't probably be on there. When you get down to the root reason why people don't tolerate food, it actually comes down to the gut bacteria's inability to break down that food. So either they are very deficient in beneficial microbes or they've got an extreme overgrowth of pathogenic microbes. Either way, it's going to be characterized as an imbalance of microbes, and the pathogenic microbes are feeding off of this certain type of sugar, the fructose and the lactose, which is then what causes these symptoms. They are also fed by starch, which is why I don't quite understand why it's on that foods to enjoy list. But the thing that I think this diet gets wrong is that it's not actually resolving the root problem, because if you really understand the nature of gut bacteria, you actually can't effectively starve out a species without dealing with the toxicity level in your body. This is why I'm so passionate about detox on this channel, because I really think when you change your diet and you don't address the toxicity in your body, you tend to mitigate symptoms. You're not getting all those yeast overgrowth symptoms. You're not got all these like pathogenic overgrowth symptoms, parasite overgrowth symptoms, all of it. You don't have as much of that, but the second that you add back in that sensitive food, you get that reaction right back again. So it's not a long-term solution. It's not actually going to heal the reason why you can't tolerate those foods, which I think is actually the goal. And the second point is that if you're never introducing any of the beneficial bacteria, then you likely will never be able to tolerate those foods, because your beneficial bacteria are what produce the enzymes to digest those foods. They are also what support healthy histamine levels, and we're going to talk about that later. But when you understand how histamine works in the body, you know that you actually do need to let your body release it to some degree. And your beneficial bacteria are actually what create the enzyme. For example, the DAO enzyme, it's just one enzyme, but it actually helps your body to break down histamine. Histamine is a gas that gets released by these pathogenic bacteria. So you can see this kind of cycle happening where the pathogens are overloaded or are overgrown. They're exhaling histamine and other toxic gases as well, causing you these symptoms. You don't have any beneficial bacteria, but you've suppressed the symptoms enough so that, you have one piece of apple and your symptoms flare all over again. This leads to really restricted eating, and it's honestly not ever going to change unless you start to repair the tissue of the gut lining, and we're going to get into that. We actually want to train your gut to tolerate these foods again. Now, I want to share a little bit of my personal experience, because I do have experience with this low FODMAP diet that's just being thrown around by every practitioner that doesn't understand gut health. Essentially, after getting a wild parasitic infection overseas, I came home with a lot of gut dysbiosis. That means like imbalance in the gut. I was sensitive to so many foods, you guys. I became sensitive to water. And so I went to a doctor. I spent a lot of money, a lot of time researching insurance, trying to figure it out, go to a doctor, basically for them to tell me there really isn't any way that I will fix this, and that I should try the low FODMAP diet, which basically just tells me that she had no idea what she was talking about and she really didn't know how to help me. Nonetheless, I decided I was actually going to try it, so I did. And within that first week, I felt so much worse. I had eliminated avocados, I had eliminated apples, I did all the things that you're supposed to do. And you guys, it did not help my body at all to heal. I kept having the symptoms, I kept having the flare-ups, and now I understand why that's happening. I'm essentially not healing the root issue. If anything, I actually kind of felt like my food sensitivities over time started to increase with this diet. And I know that sounds crazy, but actually your body will kind of start to adapt and adjust to the types of foods that you can tolerate and not tolerate. And then that'll go deeper into that in another video. But my safe foods just started switching on me. So like every time I'd have a meal, I'd be like, oh, I could eat that now. This I could eat. Oh, I could tolerate that. And then like literally at the next meal, I wouldn't be able to tolerate that. You know, I might have been reacting from before, but my body had this like certain capacity for every single type of food. And I was always trying to measure and figure out which ones I could have at any point in time. I realized that my gut didn't need less exposure to these foods. It needed my gut intestinal lining to be healed so that I wasn't overreacting to everything that happened in my body. And this is where we get into things like MCAS and, you know, your body just becoming hypersensitive. Basically, over time, you go on low FODMAP. Your body can actually become more reactive because it's unfamiliar with how to digest that food. Oftentimes, ironically, this diet will actually remove fermented foods. People will think that it's triggering their symptoms when that's actually the very thing that they need over the long haul to resolve their gut imbalance and start to get to a place of symptom-free living. So I want to explain a little bit of histamine intolerance for a second if you don't understand that concept. Basically, these are the types of people who often are attracted to the low FODMAP diet because they are actually seeing some level of relief when they get rid of these foods. And the reason for this is pretty simple, is that your body basically has a tolerance for, think of histamine like a bucket. It's only has a certain capacity for histamine. So if you have, you know, histamine in your environment or histamine triggered from your environment, you are in mold, maybe you've got allergens, maybe you're sensitive to certain chemicals, you got histamines that you eat because they're naturally occurring in a lot of food, maybe you eat some leftovers. You think of histamine kind of like a bucket. If your bucket is already halfway full with histamine that's being produced by the pathogenic overgrowth in your gut. Now this is essentially what's happening. Your gut bacteria, pathogenic gut bacteria, will actually exhale over 176 different toxic gases, but histamine is actually one of them. And so if you have a lot of pathogenic overgrowth, no beneficial to ride out that pathogenic overgrowth, then you are going to get a constant influx of these toxic gases in your system, but also of histamine. So if you're already, you know, halfway up with your bucket of histamine, and then you add in an environmental toxin, and then you add in a high histamine food, and then you add in, you know, some leftovers or an apple, that could very well just send you over the edge into like a full-on histamine flare. This is often what people who are going low FODMAP will experience, is they have all the same symptoms of like histamine intolerance. It's basically just you are histamine overloaded because your beneficial bacteria in your gut are not producing enough of the DAO enzyme to help you detox histamine, and you have too many pathogens in your gut that are exhaling histamine. And so you have this wild imbalance of not just gut bacteria, but toxic gases in your body that are producing your symptoms. If you understand that that is actually why you have those symptoms, then you'd know avoiding the foods is actually not the real solution. You actually need to go through and start to rebalance the beneficial bacteria against the pathogenic and start to actually heal the gut lining so that it can function properly and you can start to see heal. So if the low FODMAP diet didn't work for you for any reason, just know that you're not alone and that there is a step-by-step plan that you can work through to actually resolve the symptoms in your gut that are probably causing a lot of other symptoms in your body. And to be brief here, just to get you started, you're going to want to start with meat stock, and you're going to want to start with very, 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 very small amounts of fermented brines. And I did a whole video on fermented brines. I will have it linked here if you want to learn how to make it, how to maybe even just find it at the grocery store and make sure that it is low histamine. I did a video on that, so you can go ahead and check that out. But meat stock and fermented brines are going to be the baseline. This is how it is with the GAPS diet, but this is also what I tell people who are just moving into a direction of healing and they just need to know where to start. So thanks for watching.